Okay, so we are going to be looking at two different media while we are exploring Impressionism. The first I'm going to show you is watercolor. Watercolor, by its name, you can guess, needs what?
Water.
Water, very good. Grab me that towel over there. Okay, so for watercolor to work, my brush needs to be nice and wet. I need plenty of water. I'm going to start with a nice and wet brush. Watercolor paint is different from acrylic paint in a lot of ways. What makes it different is the material that actually holds the paint, the color, together. The way this material works, watercolor uses something called gum arabic, and it is, when it's dry, you can put water on it and make it wet again and use it. So your watercolor paint is going to dry in your palettes and stay dry, and that's okay because all it takes is some water and you have color again. Easy enough, right?
Yep.
How do you think I control the value of the color I'm using?
The amount of water.
The amount of water. If I don't have very much water in it, I'm going to get a darker color. If I put a lot of water, I can get a very light color that almost you can't see. I can also do wet and wet with watercolor just like I could with acrylics. If I have my paint that's wet and then I get a different color, I can blend it together probably easier than you can with acrylics sometimes. So I can create different colors that way. I can also do what's called glazing. When my color is dry and these light colors that I put up here are almost dry already. Oh, I can blot out wet colors to create a different effect as well. When I do have something that's dry, I can put a thin layer of a different color on as another way of color mixing. I don't have to mix directly in the palette necessarily. I can glaze and now I've got an orange created a different way. However, I can mix in the palette. I can take some of my yellow and I can take some of my red and look, what do I get?
Orange.
I get orange. And so I can use that just like any of the other colors that I have. I can make colors darker by adding a darker color as well. So for instance, I think this is purple, yeah. I can add a little bit of purple to my yellow to get a lower intensity purple. If I'm starting with a lot of purple, and I just add a little bit, I'll end up with a slightly darker but slightly duller yellow. Are you all with me so far?
Yes. Yes.
Watercolor can take a lot of getting used to. Unlike acrylic, your mistakes, for the most part, are there to stay. What you can do is if you've made a mistake, let's say I didn't like this purple right here, if I put some clean water on it and then tap it with a towel, I can get some of it or even most of it up. The longer the color has been there and the more staining the color, for instance blue stains pretty badly, the less that's going to work. Notice the purple I mostly got rid of, but the blue, there's definitely still a ghost there. If I try to scrub it too much, I'm going to ruin my paper. The way we are going to be looking at watercolor is by doing some impressionistic paintings. So what you're going to be doing today is actually learning the way the old masters did. A lot of times, people learning to create art would copy the works from previous master painters, from previous artists. Now, would it be okay for us to take a work we copied and call it our own?
No.
No. However, we can learn a lot from doing that as an exercise. So you're going to have a copy of a impressionistic painting, and one of the media you're going to have to try is watercolors. So trying some different things, maybe mixing some different colors and so on. You can try to copy it. How am I going to get white in watercolor? Well,
Don't use color.
I'm going to not use color at all. Okay? The white is the white of my paper. So if I mess up where the white is on my paper, I don't have white anymore. I can try and lift it up, but watercolor doesn't really work well. You can use white paint, but it doesn't look very good. It doesn't work very well. So you're going to need to be careful. But also, we've noticed with Impressionism, is there a lot of focus on getting stuff perfect, do you think?
No.
No. So your mistakes can be part of it. Just don't worry too much about it. So as you have stuff you don't like, you can try and lift it up, or you can try and work it into what you're doing somehow. Our goal today is to learn about Impressionism, but also to learn about these two media we're going to be trying. Watercolor is only the first medium. The second medium we're going to be looking at is oil pastel. And you've used oil pastel a little bit before also. They're kind of like crayons, except they are smoother and softer. Crayons are held together with a wax. This is held together with an oily medium. So I can draw just like crayons. How do I make it lighter?
Don't press down hard.
I can press down different amounts. I can press down more to get a really dark. But because it's soft, I can actually start to get some color blending here. I can do some layering to change the color. If I put a light color right next to my color, you see how that starts to get a little bit lighter? I can't find a white in here right now. You're going to get some different effects by doing this. So notice when I have these different oil pastels together, the colors blend together. You guys see that effect?
Yes.
Okay. Impressionism is all about those brush strokes. So I'm going to need to be careful to try to get the kind of brush strokes I want. But ultimately, I need to experiment with oil pastels to see what kinds of effects I can get, what I like when I do it, what I don't like. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's a drawing medium. It is really hard to get off tables. So you are going to want your tables covered with newspaper for today so that you get oil pastel when it goes off the edge on the newspaper and not on the table. It's just hard to scrub up. You're going to try different things with different colors. Now if I sit here and say, okay, my ocean is blue, or my sky, let's do the sky. My sky is blue. So I'm going to take my blue and I'm going to color it in blue. Is that going to be very interesting?
No.
Really not. Is it going to be very much like Impressionism?
No.
No. It would be better if I took different blues and worked them together with those brush strokes, or with, in this case, the oil pastel strokes, and maybe even some colors that aren't blue. To get the effect I want. See how this is more interesting than this?
Yes.
This is what we're looking for with Impressionism. Any questions about oil pastel or watercolor? Okay. Oil pastel will get on your hands some. We will use baby wipes to clean it off. Watercolor comes off your skin easily but may stain your clothing. It shouldn't splash that much. Notice we're not using a lot of the paint. So hopefully you're not having big problems with it. Today we're going to be using the basic watercolor trays just so that we can get used to watercolors. You guys have seen these before, right? Mm-hmm. But as we get better at using watercolor, I have some of these palettes that some of you will get to use. Okay.